Most would agree that people have the right to choose their work. But many people are working in jobs where they are not there by choice. Around the world, 27 million people are working under conditions of forced labor, says the ILO. People in forced labor did not consent to work in the job they're in, often because they were recruited with false promises. And they're unable to leave the job because there may be penalties for doing so, like losing their unpaid wages or collateral from debts. International companies expect that their suppliers hire their workers responsibly. This means workers are free from recruitment debt, commit to the job by choice, and are free to leave without penalty. Companies should assess whether suppliers have safeguards in place to prevent forced labor and deceptive recruitment practices. Here we'll show you the steps your company can take to prevent forced labor. Ensure transparency by accurately informing workers about the terms of their employment. Ensure they can freely resign. Eliminate the charging of recruitment fees to workers. And more closely manage the recruitment agents with whom you work. Let's see what's involved in each of these steps. Even if a person agrees to a job, if they were misled about conditions or wages during recruitment, the employer does not have the worker's consent. For example, a worker signs a contract in her country for a factory job overseas. When she arrives, the recruiter gives her another contract to sign. He claims it's the same one, translated into the local language. Despite being unable to read it, she signs. Later, she discovers it's for a lower-paid cleaning job. The new contract's terms were different from the contract she originally agreed to. Therefore, she didn't freely choose the job. To freely choose a job, workers must be accurately informed. They need to fully understand and accept the terms of their employment before they accept a position. Foreign workers need to be informed in their home country before they leave. Make sure the recruitment agency delivers an orientation session in a language the worker understands, explaining the terms of work, and provides workers with their final contract to sign in their home country. Providing contracts helps prevent deceptive recruitment practices by making all the terms clear. It should contain information like wages, benefits, duration, and working hours. If your company recruits through a labor agency, prepare the contract yourself to avoid miscommunication and deception from the agency. Workers should be given copies of their signed contracts. Workers have a right to freedom of movement, the freedom to leave a job and to leave the workplace outside of working hours. If workers think there might be penalties for resigning, that prevents them from leaving at will. For example, if workers don't get paid on time, they may be unable to resign freely for fear of losing the wages that they have not yet received. Employers must ensure that workers are paid regularly and on time. Pay your workers directly, including those hired through recruitment agencies. When this isn't possible, ensure that you know how much each worker is being paid. If an employer withholds a foreign worker's passport, the worker cannot resign without losing their passport. That's why workers should have possession of their identity documents. Workers staying in dormitories should be given their own personal locker to store personal items. When it's not work time, workers should be free to leave the premises. They shouldn't need unreasonable authorization, like toilet passes, for their movement during breaks or in their free time. If you have dormitories, make sure they don't impose curfews on workers. Employees must understand that they can resign without penalty, as long as they give reasonable notice. All repatriation costs must also be borne by the employer. This includes flight tickets back to the country of origin, plus travel back to the town or village they are from. Labor agencies often charge excessively high fees to workers for their recruitment. These fees cover the costs of passports, medical fees, insurance, visa processing, and agency fees. Workers may even be coerced into paying costs that cover kickbacks, bribes, and other illegal transactions. To cover the costs, these workers need to take out large loans, sometimes with high interest rates. Some workers are unable to resign until the debt is paid off, which may take years. The International Labor Organization has set standards that workers should not pay any fees for their job. Instead, the employer should cover all of the costs of recruitment. This is called the employer pays principle. Various countries have their own laws on what is acceptable. For example, the governments of Malaysia and Bangladesh have agreed that Bangladeshi workers may be charged up to $800 for migration costs in Bangladesh. But ultimately, brands will be held accountable to maintain ILO standards. Factories will need to meet the standards of their brand customers and not just the local law. Put procedures in place to detect any fees that were charged to workers for their recruitment. Monitor the results carefully and address any issues immediately. If you discover your workers paid prohibited fees for their recruitment, your company should reimburse them. Some companies have had to undertake huge reimbursement programs to remediate extortionate fees paid by workers, amounting to tens of millions of dollars. Shifting recruitment fees onto workers may be cheaper short term, but in the long run, responsible recruitment practices could save your company millions of dollars. To ensure recruiters don't charge workers fees, conduct due diligence of recruitment agencies, communicate your policy, and embed the requirements in supplier contracts. Conduct thorough due diligence to understand agencies' recruitment practices before entering into a partnership. Communicate your company's recruitment policy to all business partners during onboarding and periodic reviews. Provide comprehensive training on recognizing and preventing forced labor to everyone involved in recruitment in your company and partner factories. Your recruitment policy should be contained in a supplier code of conduct. It should be a condition for doing business with your company as a part of business agreements. In these agreements, include penalties for agencies who are found to charge fees. Ensure that recruiters have their own policies against forced labor. This includes codes of conduct covering suppliers and employees. Companies expect their suppliers to ensure their workers are there voluntarily. That's why companies need to assess their recruitment process for risks of forced labor. Ensure transparency by informing workers of the terms of work before hiring. Ensure freedom of movement by paying workers on time and not retaining their IDs. Eliminate recruitment fees, upholding the employer pays principle. And manage any recruitment agents to ensure they follow your requirements.